Grover Norquist is president of Americans for Tax Reform. ATR organizes the Taxpayer Protection Pledge, which asks all candidates for federal and state office to commit themselves in writing to oppose all tax increases. Mr. Norquist, dispel the media myth that there is a revolt within the Republican Party over the Taxpayer Protection Pledge.
For a long time, the press has been hoping that inside the Republican Party was this desire to raise taxes, and they were just being held back by these taxpayer protection pledges that candidates sign. In point of fact, people sign the Taxpayer Protection Pledge, a commitment to voters that they won't raise taxes, because they don't want to raise taxes, and because they want voters to know that when they run for office. So you have a Republican majority in the House of Representatives and a majority of members of the House of Representatives who signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge to never raise taxes. They're not going to raise taxes. And there was another article in the Washington Post suggesting that many Republicans secretly want to raise taxes, and after this next election there'll be maybe two additional ones who do want to raise taxes. But when they were interviewed, some of them who hadn't signed the pledge yet, and I still think they will, but they haven't signed the pledge, they said maybe they won't. But they also said they weren't ever raising taxes. So there is no interest in the modern Republican Party in raising taxes, but there is a constant interest on the part of the establishment press and the Democrats to hope that they could trick them into it.
The Washington Post recently attempted to question the current size and effectiveness of the pledge. We want you to play media critic and explain how the reporting was off.
Well, the reporters seemed to think that fewer people were signing the pledge than in previous years. And as I told the reporter at the time, we have about the same number of pledge takers at this point in the election cycle as in past election cycles, more than in many election cycles, but about what we had 2 years ago. And she had some numbers at like 400 people, pledge signers 2 years ago and 200 this time. I think what she was looking at was incumbents and challengers 2 years ago versus just challengers this time. And we haven't reached all the challengers yet, but we center incumbents plus challengers now and incumbents plus challengers 2 years ago, and they're almost the exact same number.
The president actually spoke of you during his interview with Rolling Stone magazine. He says, in an atmosphere in which folks like Rush Limbaugh and Grover Norquist are defining what it means to be a true conservative, they're lying low. He's speaking in regards to Republicans that welcome the capacity to work with him. How do you feel about that statement?
Well, it's silly. I mean, he knows perfectly well that the American people don't want to raise taxes to pay for his overspending. He's got pollsters that he pays a lot of money to, and they tell him quite correctly the American people are afraid of the amount of government spending that Obama, Reid, and Pelosi have created. They're scared about the level of debt. They're angry about taxes and threatened tax increases. They don't want those tax increases. Obama's fibbing when he says that the reason why Republican congressmen won't raise taxes so he can spend more money is because they're scared of the pledge, or they think I or Rush Limbaugh will yell at them. They're opposed to tax increases because they represent the majority of the American people who are opposed to tax increases to pay for the wasteful and excessive spending that Obama has brought to Washington, D.C. The American people don't like Chicago-style politics, and they don't like it brought to Washington, D.C., and they don't need either Rush Limbaugh or me to point that out. What the Taxpayer Protection Pledge does is makes it transparent so that voters will know which elected officials, congressmen, senators, presidential candidates, stand with them against tax increases and which ones want higher taxes. Obama wants higher taxes. He won't sign the pledge. Mitt Romney has signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge. He wants lower taxes, not higher taxes. 236 Republicans in the House of Representatives, a majority, have signed the pledge. They're not going to raise taxes. They stand with the American people. That's embarrassing to Obama and Harry Reid and the other Democrats who know that they stand against the majority of the American people.
Thank you very much.